I've been organizing these books right here. So these are all of the comments from all of my videos. As you can see, it starts from 1, 2, 3, all the way to 20, which is the last episode. So before I did this, all of the comments would be on one book. And I've managed to lose most of the books. So this one right here is probably from episode 12 to 18, I'm assuming. I can't remember, maybe 19. But it was really annoying me to not have all of them and categorize them in order. So I made it my mission to go back and watch all of my videos, which was very interesting. And I could really see the progression of how I make videos and how I edit. As you can see right here, this is episode 1. Episode 1 didn't have any question since it is the first episode. It makes sense. And then we go on to episode 2 right here. And then it just keeps on going from there. And we can even see the last episode right here, episode 20. We have 2 comments. And then the previous one, 2 comments as well. And it's really interesting as well, categorizing all of them. I started noticing some of the names because that's the people who actually like my work are now interacting with me on a daily basis. Yeah, it's a crazy experience. So in one row, I think we can fit 21, 22, 24. So we could probably fit even 200 episodes worth of books on this shelf right here, which is insane. And on this right side right here, we actually have some entries. So these are just the random books I've made, and there's only one that I managed to find, which was all the way on an abandoned building outside, since it is a part of the history of my world. And this world right here is a huge part of my life and what I do. So keeping them organized and having them all categorized properly, it's kind of like having a bookshelf in your home in real life, you know, letting your collection grow and seeing all the memories that you've collected. It kind of feels like that. Hello, and if you're new here, my name is Dai and I do weekly videos of me building in my forever world, trying to make a world that's immersive and something that I can potentially inherit to my kids one day perhaps, because that's just how the current state of the economy right now. But at least they have this wonderful Minecraft world to explore, so I'm going to do my best to make it as interesting as possible for them and just document the whole process. Now before we start with the building of today's episode, we gotta address the elephant in the room right here, which is this hat. So I got a custom hat made. Let me go into my free cam mode here. Basically, it's just a straw hat, and I just wanted to wear my armors more because I don't know if you've noticed, but I barely wear any armor in my videos, and that has caused me a lot of deaths. And I'd like to avoid that moving forward as much as possible. And I'm hoping to create an armor set that kind of fits my vibe and fits the whole lore of the city more. And what's great about this custom hat right here is that it's a custom model. So all of the other netherite helmets will stay netherite, while this one here is just a custom model, which is really cool. One neat feature that it has is that I can go into the resource pack right here, and there's a setting for me to change it to put it on my back. So let's restart. Look how cool that is. So I know it can be a bit intrusive at times to have it on my head. So I made sure it's toggleable between this mode right here, where it's just sticking on my back, where I can still have the protection of the helmet right here, and not have it on my head all the time for storytelling purposes. Now starting from this episode, we're going to be building outside of the city limits, where in the last video we made this long train track just right around that hill over there. That's where we're going to be starting the next town, which is not too far from the city, and I like it that way so we can kind of expand the lore and the atmosphere of the whole town while not... Oh, great. It has to rain. That's just how it is here. It always rains. And it's a thunderstorm. Great. Okay, like I was saying before, yeah, it just gives me the opportunity to build out the whole area more. And that way we can actually build another train station right there and connect it to city with this huge railway here. I'm really excited to make this work. So I do want to showcase a few of my work first before we start building. One of them being the first project that revitalized the whole series, which is this house right here inside of this forest. So what's really interesting about this house right here, it's for some reason I just decided that I wanted to build it on top of a stilt under a pond, which is honestly a very interesting choice. But that allowed me to experiment with the plants, right? Because Minecraft, as great as it is, it has a bit of a block palette issues when it comes to their plants option, because we don't really have that much. I mean, if you think about it, there's quite a lot, but not enough to create a whole forest or a whole terrain around it, right? Because like one terrain could probably have like one or two different type of plants, but in reality, if you look at real biomes, they'd have a lot of different varieties in terms of their plants and their grass types, and we just don't have that in Minecraft. So this right here just gave me a bit of an idea of what I could do with a new type of biome. And I do want to expand this idea a bit more. We're trying to create a muddy marshland kind of look. But this is what excites me about starting a new area, is that I can have a large biome and I could just play around with the whole area. So the other one that I do want to take a look is this pagoda right here that we have. When I built this pagoda area, I was so confused on what to put up here, and I knew it needed to have a lot of life and a lot of vegetation. But again, with the limitation of Minecraft, and it just kind of puts me in a box, not knowing what to actually do with this whole place. But what I kind of figured out with this whole area is that I just need to create a lot of variety of plants. And I think because of that variety, it just brings the whole area to life, because that's just how it is and naturally. Like, that's like the most important lesson that I took from this. Now I just want to take all of the things that I learned from this project and all of my previous project into a whole new environment, which you can actually see from here. So that hill right there is going to be where we're going to be starting. Okay, look at this whole spot right here. It has so much potential to it. Gosh, I love a new terrain because you could just envision all of the ideas that you have and what you want to build. It's just like a blank canvas. You can let your imagination run wild. So starting with this hill over here, it's fine as it is, but we need to make it better, right? We want to make it blend in with our whole environment more. And that starts with enhancing what we have here. I try not to kind of change it too much. I say that, but probably we're going to be changing most of it. But when I'm working with a terrain, I always keep what's there and then I just try to shape it better. So this is going to be a very important thing to build first. So let's get started. And we're done. And I know what you're thinking. It kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And you'd be right about that. But like with any artistic endeavors, you just gotta trust the process. And here is me trusting the process in the most expensive way possible, because this one is a lot of blocks. And you wouldn't think that a mountain, well, this is not a mountain, hill in this scale would take so much time and resources. Yeah, you'd be wrong. This was really expensive. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I built this custom hill right here. One of them being a train stop. I actually need a place to put down a train stop, and I don't want it to be on the ground. And a hill would actually make sense to put a train stop on, where it's like resting on a hill on top of the stilts. I think that would be really cool. And the second reason is to try to experiment with custom terrains and mountains, even though I've made some over there in the city, but you don't really see the full scale of the mountain from afar. While this one right here, since there's not much around the area for good reasons, since it is a more natural looking place. So I wanted to experiment and make sure that my skills were up to standard and translatable in an area where terraforming is key. So this is a proof of concept for me and this whole area to make sure that everything here looks good. So before we move on to the main project, I actually want to address a few things. One of them being this thing on top of me right here, which a lot of you guys have caught on that this cable right here shouldn't be bending like this, which honestly I'm super proud and happy that you guys notice these details that I've built, and to have people who care about these details as much as I do and to realize these small details are wrong is something that I'm really happy that you guys kind of pointed out. So let's first address this issue and make sure it's correct, and then we can move on to our main project. Okay, it should be fixed now. I know it looks wonky here, but you know, creating a straight line in a curve setting, that's pretty hard. But if we just take a look at it from a distance, let's see, you know, it makes sense, right? From here, from this angle, it sells the illusion. And even from this angle, it still kind of works, you know. It is again creating wires with the limitation of the game. And for you hardcore guys out there, I made sure I drew a line between each point to make sure it's actually straight, as straight as possible, and there's no curvature going on this wiring. So yeah, I'm glad we addressed that. That was definitely a big portion of the comment from the last video. So yeah, everything should look good now. And I just realized as well that even though I talked about wanting to build a new biome, but I didn't talk about exactly what I want to build here. So my plan is to build a city right there over on that island. But on this side, I do want to build one house, again, just to test things out, see if my plan works, test out my skills, and do what I want to do there, but in a smaller scale here. And what would make sense for something to be out of the city is a blacksmith. And I've been meaning to do a blacksmith because I actually want to have a villager that is dedicated for tools and armors, perhaps. And I think a blacksmith right around here, connecting it to the river here, would make a lot of sense. And I could use a water wheel to power the furnace inside of the building. So that's the plan here. So we want to transform this whole area into a marshland. And then by the end of it right here, we'll have a blacksmith and a water wheel next to it. So in order to build those, we just have to flatten out the whole area first. And then we can start with the building. So let's get started. And the blacksmith is done. This is the first build that I've done in this style. This is one of the traditional Japanese house. This is called Gasho Zukuri, which means praying hands. I think it's because of how the roof is shaped, and they were meant to withstand harsh conditions. And I'm really happy with how the roof detailing turned out. Now I know it might seem that the build itself is the main character of the scenery, but this building right here is just the supporting element of this whole area. And here it goes again with another rain. Perfect, perfect. We'll just keep going. I think this would be a very interesting mood, actually. So as you can see right here, I've started with the marshland here. I've laid out the groundworks. I added all of this mud looking area and kind of make it look like it's going up here as well, just to create that kind of messy look. But this build itself is pretty simple. And if you guys don't know, this build is directly taken from Blue-Eyed Samurai. Funnily enough, I got into Blue-Eyed Samurai after one of the comments in my previous 2 videos. Someone mentioned about Blue-Eyed Samurai, and I took a look at it, and it was actually a really good show. I got into it, and then I finished it within a couple of days, and I just really fell in love with the art style. Specifically with these type of builds, I already had planned out to build this whole village in this style, but after watching it, the blacksmith was the one that I decided to start with. The main highlight of this building is actually this water wheel right here. And I try to make sure that this water wheel and the system that it has outside right here actually makes sense in the interior, which we'll be talking about very soon. But I do want to showcase the water wheel itself. And this water wheel is really significant because it is what's powering the furnace inside. But the design is pretty simple. I use a lot of wood. It fits this build really nicely. For the roof, which is probably the highlight of this whole building, I use a lot of different strip wood. Strip oak, strip birch, and strip jungle, which is a lot of combination between all of them to create this weathered thatch kind of look. And then I added a lot of green to make it seem like it's moss. I used strip bamboo, moss, and some concrete powder. Specifically on this build right here, I added a lot of moss because it's supposed to be isolated and not well taken care of, while the town that we'll be building is going to be more yellow and more vibrant, while this one right here is a bit more worn down. And I did add support to the roof right here. I used a lot of spruce trap doors. And again, with all my builds, adding these tiny details, adding these support elements is what really ties the whole build together. I think adding those tiny details and elements really heightens the detail and also realism to the whole build. And for the building itself, I use a lot of different blocks, mainly mangrove wood, oak, spruce planks, barrels, and just kind of mix them all up and give it that weathered look even more. Same goes for the white parts of the building. I just mix a lot of different mushroom block, some calcite, some white concrete, some pale oak, and it creates this whole very textured kind of build. Okay, perfect. The rain finally stopped. And I think we've covered everything on the outside. Now we can finally go into the interior right here. Now the interior is pretty simple. I didn't want to overdo it. But we have these giant beams at the top. That's definitely the highlight of this whole area. And then I added some wooden planks up here. They're supposed to be wooden planks, but they're actually trapdoors. And they're there for storage. You can put some stuff up there, remove some clutter from the space down here. And you can see the open ceiling right here. It gives this moody kind of vibe where the light kind of still goes in from the outside. Oh, I just realized I forgot to talk about the funneling system of the water right here. Is that we have this water being channeled all the way from the water stream. And then it goes out here to the back into this barrel. So they have fresh water all the time here. And then as you can see from this water wheel right here, it is directly connected to this furnace right here. This right here is supposed to be the gear turning the system, and then the system kind of goes here, and then there's another gear right here. It's basically a whole system I'm trying to recreate and make it seem like that there's an actual system working here. It really makes it feel more lived in for me. And on the right side right here, we have a tatami mat where they could just sit down, use the campfire right here in the middle. So I use a leather helmet to make it seem like that there's coal down here. That's where people would cook their food or boil their water. And then right here we have a shrine, a simple shrine. Since it is very far out from the city, they need to have a dedicated shrine inside of their own house. I just used 2 golems facing away from each other and sitting to make it seem like it's this grand statue. And then we just have some clutter here, some barrels, some pots, some wood for the furnace. And you can see on the ground, because of all of the coal that this furnace has produced, kind of charred and make the whole area a bit dirty on this side. And this area right here is supposed to be like a workstation, but it's not really necessary. The whole reason why I want to have this space right here is so that I can put the villager in here without the villager moving. That way the villager would stay inside and not wander outside. So this was the best design that I could come up with, where it still feels like an open space and the villager won't move anywhere because we do have honey blocks down here, so they can't move anywhere. Oops. One last detail before we move on is that I add these copper trapdoors on the side. They're meant to be support for the roof, but also it's also to support the concrete powder that I have on the roof. Without these copper trapdoors, they would fall down. So although it looks good from the inside, it also serves a function to the whole build itself. But yeah, that's about it. One thing that I learned so far, at least, is less can be more. It's not that crazy of an interior, but because it tells a story, it has meaning behind it, it just becomes a more elevated build. As long as it makes sense for the whole setting and the whole reason why you built this place in the first place, that's more than enough. So now that we've covered everything regarding this build, now we're going to be building the main character of this whole area, which is the biome in of itself. And all of this right here was the easy part. The next part right here is going to be the hardest part of this whole project. This was a lot of work. I often dismiss how much work just placing a lot of grass, especially candles actually, because they're actually really annoying to place. But I actually installed a plugin where it allows me to put candles on top of blocks you wouldn't normally able to place. I could have just placed a dirt block on top of it and then placed the candle, but I feel like that's a lot more work. It doesn't really add any value to what I'm doing here. So I added a plugin just to make it slightly easier. But I can say it wasn't easy at all. It was still a lot of work. But yeah, I'm really happy with how everything turned out. There's supposed to be water reeds. I know there's a lot of water reeds nearby marshlands, and I just wanted to emulate that look. And I think we did that pretty well. We mixed in some of the reeds and the cattail pretty effectively. And then every now and then I have these azure bluette just to mix in the ground a bit, and some firefly bushes, and also some bushes. You know, when you're looking at it this close, it can be slightly jarring. It can be a bit too much at times, but this is supposed to be a nature where you don't really walk around the areas that much, and it's meant to be viewed from a distance, which is why I create this pathway right here to indicate the main road that people would normally take when they're going to this area. So you can see it leads to this way, which is where the train track is. And we'll be finishing this up on the next episode, as well as finishing the trees on top of there. But the view from up here is really, really amazing. Like, it takes me away looking at it. Like, I can't get over how nice everything looks from a distance. But yeah, this is the bar that I'm setting for myself for this whole area, is to do this for a whole village. And that's going to be a lot of work and a lot of materials, but I'm excited. I'm excited with the potential with this idea. It's so interesting to me. It's so new because I've been building the same style and the same era for so long. So being able to create a village where it's still cohesive with the story that I'm trying to tell here with my Japanese city, having a Japanese rural village makes a lot of sense, and it's also a breath of fresh air for me. Oh, we're hitting nighttime, so let's sleep here real quick inside of the blacksmith. Man, I'm really loving the interior in here. It's so unintentionally cozy. Okay, let's get back to it. The other thing that really tied up this whole area are these trees right here. I'm not like an expert on trees, but I always do my research when I'm building. Like, same goes with this building style and these plans and the world that I'm creating. I always try to do some research on what I'm trying to build. And this trees right here, I'm basing it off a palmatum tree, which after looking up some tree references and trying to get the actual type of trees, it's always really hard for me to pinpoint exactly what type of trees there are, because there's so many different types of trees and a lot of crossbreeding between plants. So I can't tell you specifically what tree I'm trying to replicate here. And whenever I try to look at marshlands as a reference, I do see a lot of trees that doesn't really have a lot of leaves and just have a lot of branches and a lot of sparse spaces in between them. So this is what I came up with. And for the hill, I actually wanted to have the same trees as we have in the city, and I just wanted to have a bit of a variation between the trees on the hill itself and on the ground here. And I know it's a bit sparse here at the top. It's just that I ran out of materials, and I don't think I could build any more trees in this episode. It was a lot of work building all of these trees, so I'm saving those for the next episode because we're going to be building the backside of this hill as well. So yeah, I think that's enough building for this episode. That was a lot of work. If you guys like what I do here and you like my builds and you want to download them, I actually have a Patreon, which is the best way of supporting me, and you can get all of my individual build downloads and also my world download. If you want to see my builds and support what I do, that's the best way to do so. So a few days ago, I was thinking on how I can have more memories and things that actually impact the history and the lived-in aspect of my forever world. And I thought the best way to do that is to actually represent it in my world. So right here we have some Emma. So they use these wooden plates where you can write your wishes and dreams, and I want to replicate that, where I'll be writing your dreams and what you're trying to achieve, and we can immortalize your dream in my Minecraft Forever world. So I'll start with my dream. I've always wanted to be a full-time YouTuber. I've always wanted to do this full-time, and I'll write the date of today, and there we go. Now it's immortalized. Hopefully by the next video we can immortalize someone's wish here. That way we can see all of the wishes that people have, and hopefully by doing this it could also manifest it into reality. So now we've reached to that part of the video where I call it dialogue, in which I read your comment from the last video. They said that I like that you curved the bridge. So often infrastructures in Minecraft is way too straight, which can make it monotonous. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. So if you take a look at where the bridge is right there, I actually want to point out a few things first. I always try to curve a lot of things in my world. Although it is a blocky game, if you introduce elements like this where it curves, and like that barrier over here, and also the mountain right there, I always try to introduce elements that is not too straight, because that feels really unnatural, especially in a town where it kind of grows very organically. You know, even though there are plans, cities are built not always on like a grid style. Especially during this era, I feel like there's more freedom. But also in Asian cities, there tend to be a bit more freedom in city planning and city layout, where the Western cities are always heavily dependent on grid system. But especially in the past, Asian cities are not that big on grid system. One thing is that kind of makes my city a bit more realistic in that sense, but also it just kind of makes it grounded, adding these elements that are not natural to Minecraft. You know, it just makes it a bit more interesting to look at. Another great point is this harbor right here. You can see that it kind of curves, and just because of that, it just makes everything a bit more realistic. And I tend to add a lot of these elements in my builds. And this building right here is actually not straight as well, but that's a little trick where this building is the only building which is not straight, and the other ones are normal square buildings. But just because of that, it kind of makes the whole place feel more alive and more natural. And this train right here is just another example of that. And I did not know that you guys really enjoyed looking at this curved bridge right here, because when I was building it, I was just trying to with the philosophy of building that I've been trying to do. And this was just another example of that. But I'm really glad you guys enjoyed this as well. One thing that I also noticed is that one thing that I noticed though is that it's not gonna be fun riding on this diagonal track right here. There's going to be a lot of zigzags, but that's a compromise that I'm willing to make just to make things a bit more realistic and nice. But these little elements is what really keeps me going. It's the aspect that I most enjoy when I'm building, just to add these details, just to add these tiny imperfections in my world. You know, that's the fun of everything that I do here. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. But with that being said, thank you for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.